Jesus had crossed again in the boat to the other side, a large crowd gathered around him, and he stayed close to the sea. One of the synagogue officials named Jairus came forward. Seeing him, he fell at his feet and pleaded earnestly with him, saying, "My daughter is at the point of death. Please come lay your hands on her, that she may get well and live." He went off with him, and a large crowd followed him and pressed upon him. There was a woman afflicted with hemorrhage for 12 years. She had suffered greatly at the hand of many doctors, and had to spend all that she had. Yet she was not helped, but only grew worse. She had heard about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak. She said, "If I touch his clothes, I shall be cured." Immediately her flow of blood dried up. She felt in her body that she was healed of her affliction. Jesus, aware at once that power had gone out of him, turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who has touched my clothes?" But his disciples said to Jesus, "You see the crowd is pressing upon you, and yet you ask, 'Who touched me?'" And he looked around to see who had done it. The woman, realizing what had happened to her, approached in fear and trembling. She fell down before Jesus and told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has saved you. Go in peace and be cured of your affliction." While he was still speaking, people from the synagogue official's house arrived and said, "Your daughter has died. Why trouble the teacher any longer?" Disregarding the message that was reported, Jesus said to the synagogue official, "Do not be afraid, just have faith." He did not allow anyone to accompany him inside except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they arrived at the house of the synagogue official, he caught sight of a commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. So he went in and said to them, "Why this commotion and weeping? The child is not dead, but is asleep." And they ridiculed him. Then he put them all out. He took along the child's father and the mother and those who were with him, and entered the room where the child was. He took the child by the hand and said to her, "Talitha cum," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." The girl, a child of 12, arose immediately and walked around. At that they were utterly astonished. He gave strict orders that no one should know this, and said that she should be given something to eat. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
In this Gospel that we just read, we are reading Mark. We've been reading Matthew, and Jesus is presented as Master, as teacher in the Gospel of Matthew. Instead of the Gospel of Mark, Jesus is presented as a doctor. And today we see that Jesus performs two miracles. Christ, the healer of soul, a call to rise and walk. Christ is presented in the Gospel as a healer, a doctor. But we know well that he's not just any kind of doctor, but the healer of the soul, per excellence. In today's Gospel, we see how Jairus, a synagogue official, approached Christ and said, "My daughter is about to die. Come, lay your hands on her so that she may be saved and live." We also observe a woman who had suffered from hemorrhage for 12 years, the same age as Jairus' daughter. This coincidence invites us to a deep reflection. Christ heals both the girl and the woman. The 12 years can be symbolized the 12 tribes of Israel and the 12 apostles, meaning Christ wants to save the entire world. Christ wants to save and to heal every human being. For this to happen, we must recognize that we are sinners and ask for forgiveness. Sometimes we think, I cannot serve the Lord because I'm a sinner, the greatest of all. We feel like the woman who, after being healed, approached Christ, trembling with fear. Dear brothers and sisters, however, who can confidently say, I can serve the Lord because I am worthy? We all have sin that makes us tremble. Let the one who is without sin cast the first stone. Our weakness and sins should not be an obstacle to serve Christ. It is true that we cannot remain in sin, but we must ask for forgiveness. Lord, forgive me and help me, for I cannot do it alone. At the end of the Gospel, Jesus arrives at Jairus' house. The girl is dead already, and everyone is crying and wailing. But Christ says, the girl is not dead. She is asleep. He enters the room, takes the girl by the hand and says, Talita cum, which means, little girl, I say to you, rise. Christ says the same words to you today in your life. Talita cum. That is, rise. Leave behind the life of sin, the life of slavery, envy, and resentment that harms you so much. Christ says to you, I have come to set you free. Do not stay on the ground. Do not remain on the ground. Go, your faith has saved you. Christ invites us to stand up and follow in His footsteps, to follow His example, to serve and love others. Talita cum. Do not be afraid, even if your legs tremble with fear. Do not fear to serve Christ. He wants to heal and to liberate you. He says to you, rise and walk.